One of my earliest childhood memories is my mother's tearful face. She was being bullied by her mother-in-law, my grandmother. Back then, I didn't know the term bullying, and I used to wonder, why does grandma only treat my mom meanly? I disliked my grandmother for hurting my mom. When my grandmother passed away, I remember feeling relieved as a child. Little did I know that I would go through the same experience. But I'm not just a woman who cries. My name is Jessica, a 37-year-old office worker at a mid-sized company. After dating Michael, a colleague 2 years my junior, for 2 years and getting engaged, we discovered I was pregnant. Having almost given up on having children, we were thrilled, and so was Michael. We decided to register our marriage first, postponing the wedding ceremony and reception. However, before the pregnancy was revealed, my husband's mother, my mother-in-law, who had been happy about our relationship, suddenly changed her attitude. A shotgun wedding, how indecent. Jessica must have seduced Michael, she said, looking down on me. To my mother-in-law, who lost her husband 10 years ago, Michael was the only man in the family. She adored and relied on him heavily. Believing that an older woman snatched her son away, she thought a fait accompli was created to secure her position as his wife. Michael has a good salary and is the heir to our family. You were just after a wealthy marriage, weren't you? Frankly, our in-laws are neither of notable lineage nor wealthy, to use terms like heir and marrying into wealth. Moreover, Michael has an older sister, Sarah, who lived with her husband and in-laws after marriage, so she would likely be the heir. Michael has made it clear to his mother that he has no intention of living in their inconvenient, rural hometown with poor transportation. Yet, in my mother-in-law's mind, the eldest son equals the heir to the family home. Since it's done, you must give birth to a boy, she pressured me. When prenatal tests showed it was a boy, my mother-in-law was overjoyed, but I had a bad feeling. Then, at 4 months, we discovered we were having fraternal twins. Learning that one of them was a girl filled me with anxiety about potential favoritism. Perhaps due to the stress, I was at risk of a threatened miscarriage and was admitted to the hospital at 7 months pregnant. Then, my mother-in-law intervened again. People nowadays are so frail. I had my hardships during pregnancy, but I never had to be hospitalized, she complained to my husband, who visited daily, calling me a failed wife and incompetent. She even suspected that the children weren't Michael's. It's odd for a 37-year-old to get pregnant and to be at risk of miscarriage so easily. They can't be Michael's children. She bullied with baseless logic. Even when explained by the obstetrician that twin pregnancies and deliveries are high risk, she wouldn't listen. Eventually, I gave birth to the twins, Alex and Emily, via cesarean section. My mother-in-law criticized this too. After the birth, as I suffered from the anesthesia wearing off, she said, C-sections are just taking the easy way out. A mother who hasn't experienced the pain of childbirth lacks affection for her child. That's ridiculous. The pain when the anesthesia wore off from the C-section was unbearable. At that time, a nurse silenced her by saying, about 70% of mothers with twins have C-sections, and it has nothing to do with love. However, she continued to complain to Michael. Fortunately, Michael stood up for me, telling his mother, don't pretend to know everything and insult Jessica when you've never given birth to twins yourself. Hearing this made me tear up with joy. But even after being discharged, my mother-in-law's bullying didn't stop. Although our house is just an hour's drive from my in-laws, she insists on taking a taxi and then says, since I made the effort to come, you should cover the taxi fare. When I'm overwhelmed with taking care of the twins, she complains, you can't even serve tea to your husband's mother. What an incompetent wife you are. And when both start crying at the same time, she snaps, how noisy. It's definitely your children, criticizing everything. She has no understanding of how challenging it is to take care of twins. I was exhausted, barely getting any sleep. But Michael helped by saying, then, Mom, why don't you try looking after the twins for just one day? You'll see how hard it is for Jessica. I had resigned from my job due to the pregnancy and wasn't aware of the details, but our company was undergoing a merger, creating a tough situation for Michael. His department was eliminated, and he was assigned to a new one with no prior experience. His salary decreased, and with the acquiring company disapproving of overtime, it dropped to about 2/3 of what it used to be. Furthermore, he had to bring work home due to the inability to do overtime, often working late into the night in his room. Despite this, because he was home, he actively helped by bathing the twins, changing diapers, and folding laundry. This is why he understood how difficult it was to care for two children simultaneously. I really appreciate that Michael keeps an eye on his mother when she's at our house to prevent her from bullying me. 3 years later, I decided to return to work. Raising twins turned out to be more expensive than anticipated, with costs for diapers, clothes, and food, leading us to dip into our savings and struggle to get by on Michael's salary alone. The daycare situation required the twins to split up. I would drop off one child, and Michael the other, with me picking them up. I explained the situation to my company and was allowed to leave an hour early from work to manage this. My mother-in-law actually offered to help with Alex's drop-off and pickup, but we declined. From the start, she showed favoritism towards Alex, the boy, by buying him clothes and toys, so we wanted to keep her at a distance. However, while we could guard against her on weekdays, we couldn't prevent her from showing up at our house on weekends, using a taxi as usual. She would arrive, laden with bags, and start pulling out toys, clothes, and sweets for Alex. "We appreciate you buying things for Alex, but please don't neglect Emily." "But Emily looks just like you, not cute at all," she would retort. Despite our requests, she wouldn't listen. The children began to notice her differential treatment. Alex became clingy to grandma, while Emily would hide whenever she saw her. Once, when Michael and I were not looking, she even took Alex back to her house without permission. Moreover, she had told my sister-in-law Sarah that I had dumped Alex's care on her. After receiving an angry call from Sarah, Michael clarified the situation, resolving the misunderstanding. However, this led to a new conflict, with Sarah feeling that her mother favored Michael's family, who had a son, over hers, which only had daughters, straining their relationship. A change in this mother-in-law and daughter-in-law battle came one weekend when the kids were 5. I used to visit my parents on weekends, and upon returning home around 8 p.m., I was met by my mother-in-law standing at the entrance, scolding me for abandoning the children to have fun on a weekend. "I'm sorry, I had errands at my parents'. Michael said he'd look after the kids." I replied while rushing to the kitchen to warm up lasagna for dinner. Seeing this, she exclaimed, "What time do you think it is to be serving something as heavy as lasagna, and frozen at that? That's just lazy." Indeed, it was frozen, but this was something I made from scratch and froze last Sunday. It's packed with vegetables and just a little meat, making it gentle on the stomach and safe to eat even at night. When I explained this, my mother-in-law hesitated but then retorted, "Anyway, as a wife, failing to serve fresh meals to your husband is unacceptable. It's all because you're working that you have to cook in bulk and resort to freezing. Our financial situation remains tight even now. As the children grow, the expenses for food, clothing, and education will only increase, never being enough." When I explained this, she countered, "Michael is earning well, isn't he? His company was merged, and now he works for a large corporation. His salary must be good." In reality, his salary had decreased. Michael explained this to her. Previously, Michael held a managerial position in a department of a mid-sized company, but after the merger, his department was dissolved. Michael was demoted from a managerial position to a regular employee in a different department. Moreover, the overtime pay, a privilege for regular employees, was almost non-existent due to the company's culture of discouraging overtime. As a result, a significant drop in salary was inevitable. With just Michael's salary, we couldn't save anything for our children, so quitting my job wasn't an option. Yet, my mother-in-law wouldn't accept this. "Jessica, you re-employed at another company, didn't you? It's only been a few years, so it's barely more than part-time work. Quit that job." No, her annual income is actually double mine. When Michael revealed that, her eyes widened in surprise. "What? That's impossible." She wouldn't believe it until I explained. While my weekday job pays less than Michael's, I've been earning money by uploading videos to a certain site from my parents' computer on weekends. The content of the videos is precisely about raising twins. It's a channel where I share the challenges and solutions I've encountered in raising 2 children, as well as recommendations for toys, food, and clothes. Initially, I was only sharing information on social media. However, I received a lot of feedback saying, "There's so little information on raising twins, this is incredibly helpful, and if you have any recommended products, please introduce them." Seeing this, Michael suggested that I try posting on a revenue-generating video site. The channel became quite popular, especially among mothers expecting twins, as I responded to questions with detailed videos. Eventually, baby product manufacturers approached me to try their products and provide feedback or feature their recommended items in my videos. Though it's just a few hours of work on weekends, it now generates an income of $3,000 to $4,000 a month. "Are you kidding? I've never seen you do that," she said, disbelieving. But since my workspace is at my parents' house, it's natural that she hasn't seen it. I work from my parents' house because it's hard to concentrate at our own home with the kids around, potentially causing interruptions. Sometimes I bring the kids along, and during those times, my parents play with them. Seeing my parents happily surrounded by their grandchildren makes me feel like I'm doing a bit of filial piety, which is quite satisfying. After learning that I truly earn double what Michael does, my mother-in-law suddenly started to cozy up to me. Well, Jessica, you were hiding your talent. That's right, you're the woman Michael chose." Her sudden change in attitude is because things aren't going well with Sarah's family. In front of Sarah, her mother constantly praised Alex and bought various things for him, which infuriated Sarah to the point where she demanded that her mother leave their family home. Since the land and house were already transferred to Sarah and her husband, her mother's position became incredibly weak. She might have thought about moving in with us, but she didn't like the idea of a saucy daughter-in-law and resorted to bullying to assert her dominance. Now realizing her low standing in our home as well, she suddenly became more humble, fearing that being disliked by Michael and me would leave her with nowhere to go. But changing her attitude now is too late. Recently, Emily has started to stand up to her grandmother. Just the other day, when the grandmother said, "I don't need a granddaughter. They just cost money. It would have been better if such a worthless grandchild didn't exist," Emily retorted. "Then, grandma and your mother are also worthless, because they're women." Seeing the grandmother's sour face, Michael and I couldn't help but burst into laughter, proud of our daughter. Given this situation, living with the grandmother is absolutely out of the question. "I'm sorry, but I have no intention of living with someone who disrespects and belittles me and Emily," I told her. Michael later found out from Sarah that she was also cold to Sarah's 2 daughters and pressured her daily to have a son. Naturally, Sarah's daughters also disliked the grandmother and refused to live with her any longer. In the end, the grandmother had to return to her childhood home, where her sister's family lives. However, given her personality, it seems she's not welcomed there either. She kept calling Sarah, crying and begging to live with her again, until Sarah finally blocked her number. Serves her right. As for us, we decided to move to my parents' house before the kids start elementary school. We informed her of our move only through an email stating, "We have moved," and have since cut off all contact with her. Now, including my parents, our family of 6 enjoys a lively and fulfilling daily life. We plan to continue the video uploads for a while longer, save up money, and renovate the house, as Michael and I have discussed.